Okay, good. So let's okay. So let's look more at Haskell. Just to recall, Haskell is a programming language for describing functions, and we said that a function description has two parts. One which is the type, where you give the type of inputs and outputs, and you give a definition or rule for computing outputs from inputs. Okay. So here is a simple example. Square is a function, that is the type specification, and the computation rule says square x is x times x. Okay. And this somebody asked me the other day, you put two hyphens, and then whatever follows that is a comment. So if you start a line with two hyphens, then the whole line is a comment. You can at any point of time write hyphen, and from that point on, for the rest of the line, it is a comment. Or you can have left brace hyphen and have multiple lines of comments followed by a hyphen right brace. Okay, so this is something that you can remember. Right, so this was simple. So types, you have integers, which is like plus, minus, star, slash, and also div mod. Floating point numbers, which which have the same plus, minus, star, slash, etc. Characters, which are like characters like these, whatever you can type on your keyboard. In fact, much more. You can do Unicode, etc. But we won't bother much about that in this course. Okay, then an important type is booleans. Okay, so it's called bool, and it has exactly two values, either true or false. Okay, exactly two values. And you have the operations and, or, not, etc., etc., etc. on booleans. Again, we saw what the behavior of and, or, not, etc. was the other day. If you want, you can go to some GHCI. Here I am running GHCI on this terminal. You can go here and say true and do GHCI. Yeah, as you can see, you can say true and false, it will give you false. You can say false and true, that will again give you false. True and true should give you true, etc., etc. You can just check what this function does. Yeah, yourself, right? Fine. Not of true is false, and not of false is true. Okay. So you have relational operators that compare integers, floats, or whatever, and give you a bool as a result. So you can say 2 equals 5, that will give you false. Okay. 3 not equal to 4 will give you true. 4 greater than 5 will give you false, and so on and so on. Okay. Yeah, these are all the relational operators. Notice that I used equal to here, two equality symbols, and here I used slash equal to. Okay, which means that not equal. Okay. Let's define a few functions. In fact, today's class is fully devoted to multiple ways of defining functions. Okay, but we'll start with something simple. Isordered, which has 3 inputs of type int each, and then the result is of type bool. And the way we define it is to say isordered int arrow, int arrow, int. So for every argument, we put the type and put an arrow after every argument type, and then finally put the result type. Okay, so it's a question as to why we do it this way. We'll look at this towards the end of the lecture. Okay, rather than putting int comma int, the triple, or int cross bool, int arrow bool, which is what you would do in mathematics. What would you do for a function which takes 2 real numbers as input and 1 real number as output? How will you express? I mean, that is a function from what to what?
From R2 to R or R cross R to R.
Yeah, R cross R to R, right? Instead, so here, technically speak, I mean, if you have were to follow the same thing, you would have to say int cross int arrow bool, but we are saying int arrow bool. We'll see. This is a very, very nifty thing. We'll see towards the end of the lecture.
Sir, is it because of the way it interprets the code? I mean, at first it compares X with Y and then
Will you
Y.
wait? I'll come to it. I'll come to it. Okay. So it'll, so right now think of it as taking 3 inputs and doing whatever it wants to do with the 3 inputs. Okay. X less than Y and Y less than Z. That's what this is. This is a simple function. Let us look at XOR. This is a function that we talked about earlier, and we'll today see multiple ways of defining XOR. Okay. So the input is 2 values of type bool and the output is 1 value of type bool. And you'll see that I'll have to, before I haven't uploaded these slides yet, before I upload, I'll make sure that this it is not so badly indented here. I'll do it. I'll center it a little bit better and then post it. That's okay. So XOR is of type bool, arrow bool, which means it has 2 arguments, each of type bool. It has 1 results, which is of type bool. Okay. And the definition of XOR is that XOR of B1, B2 is true exactly when one of B1 is true and the other of, one of the 2 arguments is true and one of the 2 arguments is false. Okay. Good. So if you directly write it, it is B1 and not B2 or not B1 and B2. Okay. So one is true, the other is false, or this is false and the other is true. Okay. So as we do this, let's keep. Okay. And last class itself, I mentioned that you can go here. I have GHCA. You can do these things in GHCA itself, but it is much better if you write, if you have a file and if you keep writing stuff in the file and then import it into GHCA and do whatever you want. Okay. So this, these things will always, I mean, because I'm doing it in this, this thing, it will always demand a main. I don't have any use for a main. I'll just put a default main here. Okay. You don't need to worry. When you write your own scripts, you don't need to write this main. But if you're using VS Code, it will give a warning and to sort of it wants me to set module name to that, and then when I do that, it says it's an error. Just a second. Okay, so anyway, it doesn't matter. Let me just ignore that. And what do we want to do? We want to do XOR. I'll call it XOR 1. Okay. XOR 1 is of type bool, arrow, bool, arrow. Okay. And XOR 1, we defined it to be P1 and not P2. Or not P1 and okay. So this is the thing. This is our definition. So we can save it. By the way, so I'm not seeing the chat window or whatever. If anybody has any question to ask me, please. Someone has asked me if I'm recording. I'm not recording, but I'm directly live streaming to YouTube, and that will be saved on YouTube, so you can always watch it. Yeah. So Rakesh Srinivasan, these kind of questions, please unmute yourself and ask me. Okay, because since I want to concentrate on Haskell and the sorry, Rishikesh. Yes, sorry. So yeah, so I'm concentrating on the terminal and whatnot. So I'm not having the chat open. Okay, so please, if it's important, unmute and ask me. If it's a question to the other participants here, it's fine. So if it's not a very urgent question and anyone else can answer your question, then you can just put it on chat. Otherwise, I'll not be continuously checking chat. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Because this the Zoom controls will come and obstruct my screen, and it just disturbs my presentation. Yeah? Okay. So we are back here. Okay. Okay. So yes, so you can load it here. Load L and then say 28, whatever it's called. Oh, by the way, you don't need to go to that directory and do it. In fact, I'll show it to you. I was earlier in this directory. Yeah, that is the directory, and my program is under programs. Okay. So what I can do is, even if I'm in GHCI now, when you say load, you can give the path name, actual path. Okay. So I can say programs /28 whatever. Yeah. So that loads this. So now you can ask XOR1 of false. It says false. XOR1 of false true will say true, but facile true will not give you anything. XOR1 of true false will give you true. XOR1 of true will give you. Can anyone tell what it should give you?
False.
Okay, good. False. Okay. So we'll write various other versions of XOR as we go along. Okay. So good. So I need to figure out how to how to eliminate this distracting message. I'll do that later. Just need to set some name to it. Anyway, yes. So we have much to cover. So let me go ahead. Okay. So here is another way of doing it. So right now we just gave a direct expression, but you can also.
Sir,
yes.
here why there is 3 bool, I mean, when in the XOR1 double colon, after that 3 bools are written. Why 3?
Yeah, that is
It's
because
just a
2
bool
are
to
the
bool
argument types
function.
and 1 is the result type. This is the first argument, that is the second argument, this is the result. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that is why it is written. Yes. Okay. So XOR 2. So now here is another person. Here is another version.
Sir, to get rid of the module suggestion, I think you can, if you rename the file to lecture 3, that might.
Sorry, can you be a little slower, please? I didn't hear you.
To get rid of that suggestion on top,
yeah,
if you rename the file to lecture 3, I think it might work.
I know, but I mean, but even then, I mean, this is, I can, yeah, that is true. And I don't even need to have a module actually. I don't even need to call this module. What will happen? Oh, it says module header. Yeah, because but for the 28 whatever also it's creating a problem. So maybe, yeah, I should rename the file 28 except. Okay, let me try to do that right now. Right away. I shall close this. Let me close this. Yeah. Let me move.
So this terminal window of yours, it's still in Vim.
Yeah, my terminal windows is very this thing, but one second. What did you ask me?
I'm asking if this is from Vim or from CMD.
No, this is VS Code. This terminal window itself is a terminal provided by.
Has the permission to change names of files.
This is just a terminal. So I mean, it includes a terminal. So I can just run it like a normal terminal. Okay. So that's okay. So it has that ability. Yes. Okay. So now let me
Hello, sir.
yes.
Sir, if we want to run the XOR function, then if we want to give two statements as input, then how do we actually write it? I mean, XOR of, say you write two
1 minute.
inputs.
Let me get back to the thing, and then you can ask your question. So let me say code. Run this. Sorry about all this. Oh. Okay. Set module name to now there won't be any. What was your question?
Sir, I was asking that, I mean, say I want to judge two statements, I mean, 1 equal to 1 and 2 equal to 3 with the XOR function. I mean, I want its value, whether the XOR of it. So how do I write it?
Okay. No,
Actually?
yeah. So you can just do it the same, So let me go here. Let me change to the correct directory. Let me start GHCA here. Want to do it on GHCA?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let me load this leg03.hs. There is an error. What is an error? Oh, is there an error?
Sir, .hs.
That's fine. So just give me a second. Oh, the file does not exist. Oh, that is because here it is trying to do something. So just sorry about all this. To start afresh. Something or the other. Sorry about all this. Okay. Okay. Finally. No, there are no errors, no random errors. Now, just start a terminal. First. So hopefully I don't have to do all this floundering around anymore. Okay, so I started GHC. Load. Okay, good. So this works. Okay, fine. So yes, what was the question you asked?
Sir, I was asking how to write two statements as input. Okay, sir. So, yes, sir. I see. Thank you.
So if it's a complex expression, put it within parentheses. You
Okay.
can put anything you want. Okay, you can say XOR of XOR of and then on the other hand you can have OR of no, not OR. So you can have 2 equals 22 or
It's XOR 1.
yes,
It's XOR 1.
yeah, XOR 1. That's right. That's right. Yes, so you can do things like this. Okay, so you can write just like you can write complex arithmetic expressions. You can write complex Haskell expressions. Okay, put parentheses around the more complex expressions. But note that in mathematics you would write things like f of x. Okay, x within parentheses. But in Haskell you would write f space x. Okay, this is a crucial difference. Okay, so please bear that in mind. In mathematics, for instance, if you want to say sine of cos of x, I don't know, that doesn't make sense. Sine of f of x, you will write it like this, sine of f of x. Okay, whereas in Haskell you will write sine space fx and the whole of fx will be within parentheses. Okay, we will see why all this in a little bit. Okay, later in the lecture. But
Hello,
this
sir.
is just Haskell syntax. You write f space x. Okay, not f within parentheses x. Unlike mathematics. Yes, somebody has a question.
Yeah, if we put parentheses, will it somehow affect the output?
No, it won't affect the output. You could do that also. For instance, you could say you could, for instance, say XOR, but you can't use comma. So that is the main point. You can say XOR 5-3. Sorry, XOR true false. Might work, might not work.
Yes, XOR 1.
But note again, it is XOR 1 true within parenthesis, false within parenthesis, not true comma false. Okay, like you would do in mathematics. Yeah, so this is important, but we'll come to that later. So for now, just so it's easier to, it's cleaner and easier and visually better to just write XOR space true space false. Okay. Okay. Any questions? Shall I go to the second version? Okay. Sorry about all this thing. I'll make sure that I don't spend so much time on debugging VS Code next time. Okay. So XOR 2 is the same, but XOR 2, the way I'll do it is this: XOR 2 B1 B2 equals. Okay, what do I want to say? I want to say if B1, what am I saying? Yeah, this is the second version. If B1 equals B2, then true, else false. Sorry. If B1 equals B2, then false, else true. Yeah, this is my version.
So you can do that directly with not B1, not in brackets B1 equal to B2.
No, wait. So we'll do all that. I want to go slow. If you've seen this already, then it's fine, good. But let us develop this in a series of steps and get to it. Of course, that is what this warning also tells you. There is this warning that tells you, why don't you do that? Yes. VS Code itself will suggest simplifications. It's good. We'll come to that. Okay. Right. So reload. Yes. XOR 2 of false true is true. XOR 2 of false is false. Okay. So this also works. And but the main point I want you to notice the if then else. Okay. If you have done other programming, then you will note that if then else is usually used to say if. Let me put some comments here. You will usually say if condition, then yeah, what you will usually say is if condition, then a set of statements, a sequence of statements, else another sequence of statements. but there are no statements in Haskell, remember. Okay. Only expressions. For now at least. Okay. So in Haskell, you want to say f of some x equals if condition, then expression 1, else expression 2. Okay. This is like somebody observed, this is like the case definition by cases in mathematics. You will say f of x equals, and you will write a large left brace. I don't know how you will write that here. Imagine that there is one large left brace. You will write it like that, and then you will say expression 1 if condition is true, condition 1, expression 2 you're familiar with such things, right? With such definitions, right? Then you will say otherwise. Okay, and your if then else is a special case of that. Okay, with just two possibilities, condition and negation of the condition. Okay, so typically you will define things like modulus of x equals what will you say? You will say x if x is greater than or equal to 0, and you will say minus x otherwise. Right? You know these kind of definitions in mathematics, right? We are doing exactly the same. Okay, so you can do if then else and give expressions in between rather than statements. Any questions in this?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
So is it compulsory to write the if else statement in one line?
Yeah. No, you don't need to write it in one line. It will typically not be possible. You can do this. Yeah, you can do like this. Yes, if you do enter, it will automatically indent. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. So that is another version of XOR. Now let's look at third version of XOR. Yeah, if then else is an expression, not a statement. So then and else define values. It is similar to if you have done programming in C. There is a construct called this question mark colon. It is also there in Java, I think. You can say condition question mark expression 1 colon expression 2. Okay.
Switch case.
Yes.
Switch case in Java. That is.
Switch.
Oh,
No,
we
no,
have
not
question
switch.
colon as
But
well.
switch is-
These
no.
are ternary.
There is a question mark operator, which is a
Ternary operators.
yeah.
Okay,
The
okay.
switch is a more general case, but this if then else is like this binary thing
Okay,
is
yes.
similar
Ternary
to-
operator.
Sir,
Yes.
so when do you use else and when do you use otherwise? I didn't get that.
No. This if when you use if, you only use else. You never use otherwise. The otherwise that I wrote was in mathematics. When you do mathematics definitions, you will do it. I just showed you for illustration. Okay.
Okay.
So the bit inside this, the green ones are all comments. That's all supposed to be some mathematical. Okay, in mathematics. I said in mathematics, you see.
Right.
Yeah, so that's not in Haskell. There is an otherwise in Haskell, but that will come later. Okay, don't worry.
Okay.
So I'm saying this if then else is a special case of this. Okay, there is a way to do this whole this thing that is called guarded definitions. When you come there, you will see that there is actually an otherwise. Okay, you will see that when you come there. Okay, I'll get there soon. Okay? here is another expression. So yes, I can flip this around. Instead of saying if B1 equals B2, then false, else true. So I'll just make it one line because it's a simple definition. Yeah, but you can have it multiple lines. I can switch it around. I can say XOR 3. If B1 is not equal to B2, then true, else false.
So
Yeah,
can
then just
we?
switch it around. And this is the same as XOR 2, behavioral. Okay.
Yes, sir. So can we just write XOR 3 B1 B2 is equal to B1 not equal to B2?
Yes, we can, but I'll come to that in a minute. Okay, I'll come to that in 2 or 3 slides. Okay. I've created these slides intended for people who don't know all this stuff, but you seem to already know it in advance. So yes, we can do it. We'll get there. Okay. Yes, can be simplified to this. Okay, why can you simplify to this? Because if this condition, if B1 is not equal to B2 is true, then you are going to return true. If this condition is false, then you are going to return false. Instead, why not just write the condition itself? Yeah, so that's another version. You can do that. That's XOR 4. Let's say.
Sir, does colon or reload just that last loaded thing or
yes,
everything?
colon R reload the last one that was loaded. Okay, the last L command, whatever you loaded using the last colon L command, colon R will reload it. Okay, that's a convenience. Okay, reload it says, right? So you don't need to name the file name. Yeah. Okay. Fine. So XOR 4. Okay, that's another version. So save this. So that's XOR 4. Is it clear? XOR 4 of true false should give you true. True not equal to false will also give you true. Yeah. So XOR 4 is nothing but checking for not equal. In fact, you can simplify it even further, and you can actually, okay, 2 steps. Okay. Firstly, I told you that whenever you have an operator like this, you can make it like a function by putting parentheses. But what is a function name like XOR 4 or whatever? These functions, you first name the function and then give the arguments, right? Whereas these operators, you put it in between the 2 arguments. Okay. Instead, you can put it at the front and then provide the arguments. But if you want to do that, you should put parentheses around it. So I can say XOR 5 is not equal to function applied to B1 and B2. Yes. And so it says this is the more general thing, but I will eschew this and just say bool arrow. Okay, good. So is this clear what I am doing? And of course, now it will give you this thing. One more simplification. But is it clear how I went from XOR 4 to XOR 5? Anybody has a question?
Sir, I have a question about the types. So we're dealing with B1 and B2, and then you get like the final false or true statement, right? So shouldn't it be bool, comma, bool, and
yes, bool, comma, bool, or bool, cross bool, arrow, bool. I'm going to explain it in a bit. Okay, that is the difference between. So in mathematics, you will call these functions by. In mathematics, you would say XOR of true, comma, false, right? And the type, the mathematical XOR, let us say M XOR. I'll call it M XOR. M XOR is this, and the type of M XOR is bool, cross bool. How do I write cross? Times arrow bool. Okay. The Haskell XOR is of type bool, arrow bool, arrow bool. And the way you invoke it is H XOR, the Haskell XOR, true, space true, space false. All this is related. I'll come to it pretty soon. Okay. So this is just the Haskell way of doing things. But do you understand the move from XOR 4 to XOR 5?
Yeah.
Could you explain it once again? For
Yeah. So I have this not equal to, right? That's an operator. That is usually the way you put up. So can you tell your name, please? I have hidden all the.
Sir, I'm Nilabjo.
Can't see your name.
Nilabjo Das.
Huh?
Sir, Nilabjo Das.
Nilabjo Das. Yes, sure. Very nice name. So, but where do you find a blue lotus? I don't know. Or does it mean Nilotpala? Something else.
No, sir. It means blue lotus.
Is it a blue? So is it a blue lily or is it a blue lotus?
The lotus actually.
Okay. Good. Anyway, yes. So this is an operator. Okay, like plus, minus, etc. Typically, you will put it in between it's a binary operator. So you will put it, binary operator means an operator that has two arguments. Okay, like plus, minus, multiplication, etc. The typical way to do it is to put it in between the two arguments. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
But in Haskell, whenever you have an operator, binary operator like this, you can always put parentheses around it and you can treat them like functions. Okay, functions like some f. When you write f, you don't write f in between the two arguments, right? Assume that there is a function f with two arguments. How do you say f of xy, right? Not xfy, right?
Okay, sir. So plus xy means x plus y.
Yeah, but you have to put
Actually,
plus within parentheses. That is the point.
Okay.
Plus within parentheses makes it into a function. Okay. On the other hand, if you have a binary function like XOR 5, okay, you would think that it is convenient to put it in between. Okay, like an operator. You can do that also. The way to do it is to say true. Let me clear the screen so that you can see it better. True. Put a backtick. XOR 5. Put another backtick and say false. Do you see this? The backtick here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's on your keyboard. It will be right under the tilde, the leftmost top. Yeah, and
Yes,
so you put this. That will make it like an operator. This is like plus or minus or whatever.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I have a question.
But this is not been compiled yet. 1 second. Again, I see a lot of messages on the chat from time to time. If it's any message intended to me, please tell me. Yeah.
Sir.
1 second. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yes.
So what is the use of this main double colon IO main?
Forget it. I have written that just so that this VS Code doesn't complain. I don't need to have that module nor that main. If you are writing this whole thing on using some other editor, then it is enough if you just do all this. You can ignore the top line and the last line. Okay. So that is not useful right now for us. Okay. But I have just put it for the purposes of pleasing VS Code a little more. That's all. Okay. Don't do it. Yes. Okay. Good. So are you with me till now? Till XOR 5? Please tell me.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. So Haskell operators, even infix operators are just functions. They can be used like functions, meaning that you put it in the prefix by enclosing them in parentheses. So star within parentheses xy is the same as x star y. And this is very useful. We'll see it later. We'll see how you can make use of this later. So you can say star of 2, 5, and that will give you 10. Is it clear? Yeah. You can say minus of 3, 2, and that will give you 1. Yeah. Okay, good. So therefore, but okay, so here is another version where you can simplify it even further. And you can say XOR 6, let's call it. Look at this, what we are saying in the XOR 5. We are saying no matter what B1, B2 is, applying XOR 5 on B1, B2 is the same as applying not equal to on B1, B2. Okay. So why do we need to mention B1, B2 at all? So you might very simply say XOR 6 equals not equal to, but within parentheses. Okay. So whenever you have a definition, f of xy equals g of xy, then you can simplify it and say f equal to g. Is it clear? I
Yes,
use
sir.
the same arguments without modifying them in the same order on the right hand side. Okay. So really, if you think of XOR 5 as f and this not equal to as g, I'm saying f of b1 b2 equals g of b1 b2. A simpler way of saying the same thing is to say that f equals g. So now I have this definition there. Any questions on this?
So, but how does like XOR know that you are referring to the previous statement? Like,
No,
for
no,
example,
no, I'm not referring to the previous thing. This is a new definition, completely XOR 6. I'm just saying XOR 6 is nothing but not equal to. That's all. I am simplifying that definition into this definition.
oh, so this knows that you're referring to like two arguments because this bool.
Yes, because not equal to refers to two arguments.
Okay.
You don't even need to give the type actually. So even if you just say not equal to, because not equal to is built in, not equal to takes two types, it knows that, oh, okay, XOR 6 should have two arguments because I'm saying f is the same function as g. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
What is built-in function?
Uh-huh.
So what is built-in function?
Built-in function means a function that you don't need to define. Haskell provides it for you already. Equal to, not equal to, and so on is so basic that, especially on bool, natural numbers, etc. Built-in means something that Haskell itself provides for you without you needing to build it. Is it okay? Do it
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, every language has to provide a few basic facilities. Okay. And this not equal to is a basic facility that is being provided by Haskell for certain types, not for every type. Okay. For all the, again, bool is a built-in type. So you will later see that you can build your own types. Okay. But bool is something that is already provided to you. For all the types that are already provided to you, certain basic functions are also provided, like equal to, not equal to, at the very least. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me reload. Let me just say true, XOR 6, false. Yes, I get to.
Sir, is there a way to write negation?
What?
Negation?
Negation you can write, you can say not. Okay, you can, here is another version. Okay, since you want to do that, okay, so here is another version. I can say XOR 7 is nothing but XOR 7 of B1 B2 equals not of B1 equals B2. That's another version. Okay.
Sir, could you once just tell that when we use 2 equal to and when we use 1 equal to?
1 equal to is for definition. I am defining XOR 7 B1 B2 to be equal to this. 2 equalities is to check for equality.
Okay. Sir.
Yeah, I am comparing for equality. Here I am defining. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Good. Okay, let me get back to the slide. So here is another version.
Sir, I had a question.
Yes.
If we want to do something like f is equal to g, can we do something like f is equal to minus g also, or do we have to use it exactly as it is?
You cannot say minus g, right? Right. Good. This is a very good question. What you want to ask is, can I use not equal to? Okay.
Yeah, something
That's
like
what you
that.
want to know. Not
Yeah,
of
something
equal
like
to. Unfortunately, not is a function that can be applied only on booleans. But here I can already introduce it to you. Yes. What you can do is the following: XOR 8. Okay, XOR 8 equals, you want to start with equality and you want to do something to it. You want to basically say not equality, but that won't work because not is a function that applies only to a boolean. But thankfully, there is a nice thing. I don't know if it will work. Can I compose? No, I cannot compose because I need it to be unary for that. Okay. So here I cannot do, but for instance, okay, your question is good. Just give me a minute. Okay.
So could you just repeat? I mean, like Gautam, could you repeat the question? I didn't quite understand.
No. So one second. So let me. Yeah. So his question is this: suppose I define an f somehow. Suppose I define a square. Okay. This is his question. Okay. Now suppose I want to define a negation of square. The boring way to do it is this. His question is, can I just say something like negation of square equals minus square? Do I understand you correct?
Yes, sir. That is what I was asking. Yes.
Yeah, but minus can only be applied to a number, not to a function. But you know in mathematics how to do it. You want to say a negation composed with square. That's it. This will work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So what was the composition symbol?
Dot. You can see the dot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why are we
Gives an error. I don't know why it gives an error. Sorry.
So why are we composing instead of using square as an argument?
Square is not an argument. No. Why is square an argument? The argument
Because
is
it will output a number.
The argument is still an integer, right? So I take an integer, I first square it, and then I negate it. Yeah. So in fact, I should be using negate. So instead of using minus, I can use something called negate. Negate will actually negate it. Negate a number. Yeah, this is the thing. Yeah, negate dot square. Square will square it. You're composing using this symbol. Unfortunately, the color theme I have chosen is so amazing that you can't see the dot. But yeah, but if you squint a little, you will see. Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, people are familiar with
Yes, sir. Thank you.
composing functions, right? In mathematics, if you write f dot g, it means for all x, h equals f dot g means h of x is nothing but f applied to g of x. Okay. Similarly, here negation of a square, neg square is nothing but negate of square of x. Okay, this dot is nice. But this dot, remember, only works if things are reasonably what should we say, clean. Here square is a unary function, meaning it takes only one argument. In that case, this dot works. If it's a binary function, it won't work directly like that. Okay, that is one drawback. Okay, so for binary functions, it won't work directly. We'll see various other ways of getting it to work later. Okay. Yes.
So in the definition of XOR 6, if I remove the type definition and I just write XOR 6 is equal to not equal to,
it will figure out a type of XOR. It will be a more general type. Yeah. See what
but
is
it's giving some error.
Why is it giving error?
I
Oh,
don't
it's
know. I
giving
mean,
some error, is it? Yeah, it is giving an error. So no. So the general type that it gives, don't follow that. You should follow something like this. At least this much should be. Yeah, this type will work. Okay. So sometimes this VS Code might be overzealous and try to do some nonsense which might not work. Okay.
So what's EQ? I mean, I joined a little late. So.
No, EQ. So forget it. EQ meaning any type which permits equality. The point is this not equal to works not only for bool but also for int, float, etc., right? Character. Not equal to applies to anything, right? Anything which can be checked for equality.
Okay.
That is what this means. EQA means any type where the elements of the type can be checked for equality between each other.
Yeah, okay. Sir.
Okay, so instead of fixing a concrete type like bool, you are saying it can be any type whatsoever, but the two arguments should be of the same type, A. Okay, A is like an abstract type name, but it should be the same type. If you give me two objects of the same type A, what type A? It can be any type. It can be any type as long as elements of that type can be checked for equality. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. So
Yeah,
equality.
equality means not equality, inequality also. Okay.
As in, like, the Haskell thing already knows that there are only certain types that follow.
Yeah. There are only certain things. No, Haskell knows that if a type is right. So when you try to actually apply it, if you apply equality for int, char, etc., it will work. But if you apply for equality of some functions or whatever, it won't work. Yeah,
Okay.
right. What you say is true. And we'll later see that much of the thing, we as a user, you can define your own types. Okay,
Yes.
to store certain kind of information, and Haskell will, and at that point you can tell that, oh, allow my type to elements of my type to be checked for equality, etc. We'll see how to do all that later. Okay, for now you don't worry. So that is why this VS Code sometimes will give you more general suggestions than required. For now, it is good to stick to the default types. Okay, so don't try the very general types, etc. Okay, let me go ahead because there's still much to cover. Here is another very, very important way of defining a function. Okay, you might think that in other languages it's very cumbersome to do this, but in Haskell, okay, you can say, oh, what is XOR 8? It's a function which takes two booleans as inputs, right? What all kinds of booleans are possible? What all combinations of values are possible? False, false. Okay, and the result is false. False true is another combination that is possible, and in this case it will be true. True false is another case that is possible. In this case, the value is true. This is a legitimate definition of your function. Okay, so you are basically giving a table. You are basically giving, after all, what is a function in mathematics? A function, you can give a function by a rule, but you also say mathematically the most general definition of a function is to say that it is any map from elements in your domain to elements in your range, right? Any map means what? For every combination of values in your for every combination of inputs, you should give a particular value. That's all, right? In case that your number of inputs is finite and the domain of each input is also finite, bool, there are only finitely many bools. There are only finitely many bools. So there are only two possibilities. 2 cross 2, 4 possibilities. So you can list out all 4 possibilities and tell what the value is in each of these 4 possibilities. Okay, that's a legitimate Haskell function. Is this clear? Yeah, now in this definition, you have multiple lines of definition. You see, you have multiple definitions. Each definition works for a certain case. Okay, so that is the point. So you can have the same XOR 8, multiple lines of definitions for the same XOR 8, provided that the inputs for the different cases are all different, disjoint. So if you try, for instance, to say XOR 8 true, true again, or true, false again, let's say, it will complain. It will say that, at least it will give a warning. It is giving a warning saying that you have given 2 definitions for true, true, false. Okay, let's look at the warning. It says pattern matches redundant. Okay, it says you have given 2 distinct definitions for true, false. For every combination of input, you can give a separate line of definition. You can give conflicting. If you give conflicting thing also, it will complain. Yes, it says, oh, you have given 2 definitions for XOR true, false. Okay, you better pick one. Okay, but of course, it's this kind of definition is possible only for functions which have 2 bools as argument. Okay, or 3 bools as argument, because pretty soon you will have to write a whole lot of lines, and then why are you programming at all? You might as well give some. It will be like some logarithm table or okay, so you don't want to do that.
Okay. So can we do the same thing for if? Like, can we say if this, then something, and then if something, then something? Can that also be defined in several lines, or is that not possible?
What is it that you have in mind? Who's asking this question again?
Shrivani, sir.
Shrivani.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. What is it that you want to do?
Sir, like in general, like if we're trying to define a function,
So you are asking B1, B2. You are saying if B1 equals true, then if B1 equals false, B2 equals true.
yeah, is that possible?
It is possible. Then false, else true. Yes, this is possible. You can write something.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
You are exhaustively checking all the things. But I mean, that is a very yeah, that's a very cumbersome way of writing it, but you can write it. There is nothing wrong. But yeah, so you can do that. But let us look at this definition. So instead of calling it XOR 9, I will call it. Oh, by the way, it's close to 3. It's 3:3 now. 3:15 I am supposed to end. I'll go a little above 9. Sorry about that. Okay. Yes. So like I told you, this is very exhaustive. I mean, this is an exhaustive list of all input possibilities and the corresponding definition there. You don't want to in general do this. So what you can do is, okay, so you can simplify this further. You can say, okay, here is what I can do. I'll say XOR 9. I'll dispense with giving the types. Okay, the type is bool arrow, bool arrow. So XOR 9 of false true is. I'll just put the yes. I'll also say XOR 9 of. So what I'm saying is I can give some cases exhaustively and the others bunch them up together. I will say XOR 9 of B1, B2 equals false. This is a legitimate definition. Okay. What I'm saying is that this is like exhaustive definition, but I am writing certain cases explicitly. Other cases I am handling by one single rule. Okay. And this particular thing is called pattern matching. Okay. This is called pattern matching. Okay. It is not always feasible to list all inputs. So you can give some inputs explicitly. Okay. Here these are explicit. And for the rest, you just say, okay, no matter what Boolean you get, B1, B2, the answer is false. Okay. And the way it works is that you use the first. So now there is a legitimate question. When will this last rule be? There are 3 rules now for evaluating XOR. Okay. Either the first rule or the second rule or the third rule. Okay. The way Haskell will work is it will, whenever you provide actual arguments, XOR true, let us say, it will check against the first rule. It has received some actual inputs, namely true. This rule mentions 2 arguments, namely false, true. True does not match false, true. So it will say, okay, I'll skip this rule. It will go to the second rule. This says true, false, but true does not match this. So it will go to the third rule. The third rule says B1, B2. B1, B2 stands for any Boolean whatsoever. Okay, you can, I'm just not putting any specific value here. So I'm saying no matter what it is, okay, really. So it will match the third rule and it will return false. Okay, is this clear? It will start trying to match from the top to bottom. That is why it is called pattern matching. These things are called patterns, false, true. These are patterns. B1 is also a pattern. What pattern is this? It's a pattern which says match any Boolean whatsoever. If you give a variable name like this, if you give a name like this, that matches anything. Okay, so these are patterns. If you give an actual argument, it will try to match against the patterns. If the patterns match, it will fire that rule. Otherwise, it will go to the next rule. Okay, it will check that. If that pattern doesn't match, it will go to the next rule. So this is doing a little more, and this is very, very useful to know. This is many functions that we will define in Haskell will be defined using pattern matching. Okay, So use the first definition that matches from top to bottom. So if my actual invocation is XOR false true, it will go to this rule, it will match, and it will say true as a result. Okay. If I say XOR true, true, it will not match this. It will not match these two patterns, and then it will go to the third rule, and it will fire the third. It matches the third definition. Okay. So to be more explicit, when does a function call where you give actual arguments match a definition? If argument in the definition is a constant, okay, like here, like in the definition, if the pattern is a constant like false, true, etc., then the value supplied in the function call must be the same constant. Okay, to be the same false, true, etc. If the argument in the definition is a variable, like the last rule, XOR b1 b2 equals false, then any value supplied in the function call will be matched against the will match that definition. Okay, and typically the XOR b1 b2, the right hand side might refer to b1 as well as b2. So whatever input you receive, you will substitute that. Like we said usually that if you have a function definition which mentions some variables xy, and if you make a function call with actual values v1 v2, then v1 will be substituted for x, v2 will be substituted for y, etc. That substitution will happen. But it so happens that in this definition here for XOR, the right hand side neither uses b1 nor uses b2. So there is no substitution that happens, but usually substitution will also happen. Okay, but the point to remember is you start searching from top to bottom. If the actual input that is supplied matches the pattern, that all the inputs match all the patterns, then that rule will be fired. Otherwise, you will go to the next rule. Okay, if there is a variable in that position, then that will match any input value that is provided. Okay, so this is the thing. Let me actually write. Okay, 1 minute. Let me save this. Let me reload this. Let me execute it once to show that it works. Then I'll ask questions. Then I'll take questions. Yes, what is your question?
So lastly, you told that there isn't any role of control in Haskell, but today in this pattern matching example, you told that there is a role of control.
Right. So this is implicit control. Okay, there is no. Yeah, this is right. So I didn't say there is. Okay, I didn't. What you're saying is true. This is a notion of control. When you do multi-line definitions like this, multiple definitions, then the notion of control is that the first definition will be tried, then the second definition, then the third definition. Okay, good. What you're saying is true. Yeah. Now, why does it not? Yes. So XOR 9 works. Is it clear? Now, what am I saying in the slide? I can mix. Yeah. It need not be that all the arguments are either constants or all the arguments are variables. Okay. I can have XOR 10 where XOR 10 of false b. If the first argument is false, then what should my value be? False true is what? True. False false is false. So XOR 10 of false b is what?
B.
B. Right? What is this? Yes. XOR 10 of b false is, no matter what b is, if the second argument is false, then I'll have b again. Yeah. The final case is XOR 10 of true. This is false. This is another definition. Okay.
So I don't understand what B is.
B is the argument name. B is the name of the first argument. So if I want, I can give it B2 here and B1 there. Let's say B1 is the name of the first argument, B2 is the name of the second argument. Here I'm saying if B1 is actually false, then the result is just whatever value B2 is. Okay. And here I'm saying if the second argument is false, then the final result is whatever value the argument B1 is. Is this clearer to you?
No, but like why have you done this? I mean, like from which definition are we trying to show? I mean, like what are we doing? This is a new definition? Or?
This is I'm just trying to tell you what are all the ways in which you can define. This is another way to define this function using pattern matching.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all. Okay, I'm just saying. So look at this exhaustive definition, XOR 8. One way to clearly we'll be doing a lot of definitions using pattern matching, but in pattern matching you cannot exhaustively define all the cases. Okay, of course here you can, because there are only 2 Boolean arguments. But if there are more arguments, or if this argument are int instead of bool, you can't do this, right? So you need ways to simplify these definitions. So I'm saying here is one way to here is one illustration of a definition where you explicitly mention certain cases and you give general rules for other cases. Okay, this XOR 9 B1 B2 is a general rule. It says in all other cases true false. Okay, here I am showing that I am illustrating the fact that you need not have both arguments to be constants, patterns, or both arguments to be variables. Okay, you can mix and match. You can have one variable to be a pattern, another variable to be a variable, another argument to be a variable. Here the first argument is a variable, second argument is a pattern. Okay, that is what this illustrates. Is it clear? These are all generalizations from XOR 8 if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, instead of writing that exhaustive case which you can't do for other domains, so you need to have ways of simplifying, bunching various cases together, etc. This is really like your mathematical. This is also like your mathematical case definition, except for a except for a more restricted case. We are not giving conditions here, but we are giving patterns. Okay, fine. So let me reload this.
So we can also do false B2 equals B2 and true B2 equals not B2.
Yeah, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. Yes, you can do that. Okay. Yes, so that illustrates that you can have okay. Good. So you can do this also. Yes. Okay, good. So yeah, so somebody has raised hand. Yes, please ask.
Sir, you said expressions are not allowed in Haskell. So I didn't understand.
What?
Sir, you said expressions are not allowed in Haskell.
No, I didn't say that. I said statements are not there for now at least. I never said expressions are not allowed. Everything in Haskell is an expression. There are only
no statements.
Yeah?
There are no statements.
Yeah, for now. I mean, that is again a simplification. Don't take this to be gospel truth. Okay, don't take this to be like Bhagavad Gita or something. This is just for the moment. Okay, we don't concentrate on that. There are later you'll see that there are some control statements, etc. For now, we'll just be
okay, sir.
Okay, good.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Okay, so XOR 11 is there. Now, yeah, so I'll just take maybe 5 more minutes. If you don't mind, just at least.
Sir, one question.
Do you have any other class right now after this?
No. I have a question, sir.
Yes, please.
Yeah, if suppose.
And who is this, may I know?
Harish.
Yeah.
Yeah, for some inputs, if you don't define what the function should return.
Yes, so for instance,
that's an error, right?
For instance, right now here, XOR 11, let me delete. Sorry. I'll comment out. Okay. Now, first of all, there is a warning. Okay. Already you will see. If I see what that warning is, it says pattern matches are non-exhaustive. It says, but that's only a warning, not an error. Okay.
Okay.
It will still compile. Okay. So
if you run the.
Let's go here. At runtime, you will get it. If you just say the same thing, you will get a. It says exception, non-exhaustive pattern.
Okay. Understood.
Right.
I had a question.
But there is no problem if you, for instance, now go here. You will again get a warning if you just say XOR 11. Okay, this is a good question. XOR 11 false B2 equals true. Let me say. Okay.
Okay.
And then I'll uncomment. Okay. Now, now I'll again get a warning, but this time the warning will say pattern match is redundant because I have two definitions with the same pattern. False here and B2, false here and B2. Now, what do you think will happen if I do false true? XOR 11 of false true.
Will it
Yeah,
operate
it says
the
redundant.
first?
That's okay. But
We'll take the first one. So false true will be true.
Exactly. It will take the first one. That's right. True. False. False. False XOR 11. False. That will take the first definition because it will always try to match from the first definition. Okay. So there are two things. Non-exhaustive definitions is one thing. That is always a possibility. You will get some suitable warning from Haskell. Overlapping definitions is another thing. And in the case of overlapping definitions, you are only getting a warning and not an error because Haskell will anyway choose the first definition that applies. Okay. So it doesn't matter for your correctness. Whenever you invoke that function on any argument, on the same argument, even if you invoke it multiple times, you will get the same result. Okay. But you will get a warning because you can simplify the program. I mean, it's usually an indication that you are not thinking right about your program or some such. Okay. So Haskell provides you a warning. Okay. Great. Okay. Now you see you don't have that overlapping. Okay. I think it is clear what we are doing. Yeah. We have seen this also. XOR false B is B. XOR true B is not B. And B is used in the, yes. So let's go back to this definition, XOR 9. Here, this B1 and B2 was not used in the right-hand side at all, in which case what you can do is you can just say that I don't care what it is. Okay. So underscore means don't care. Okay. Because it is not used on the right, so you don't need to give a name. Here you need to give a name, XOR B1 false, because B1 is used on the right. Okay. Here you need to give a name. True B2 is not B2, so B2 you have to give. But here you're saying, okay, false true means the value is true. True false means the answer is true. If it is anything else, which I don't care, so I don't even bother naming it, it will match false. Okay, that is what it is. Okay.
Sir, why can't we? Why should we always use the double underscore? Why can't we just write XOR 9 equal to in parenthesis false? I mean, it is the false function.
No, because XOR 9. What do you mean by in parenthesis false? False is not a binary function. No? XOR 9 is a binary function. False is a constant. It can't be applied to anything. Yeah, you're saying XOR 9, it is not double underscore. It is one underscore standing for the first argument. It is another underscore standing for the second argument. Okay. So just to make it clear, I'll make it match this. You can give it like this also. Yes. First argument, I don't care. Underscore is a don't care character. I don't care. Yeah. So you don't need to give.
Okay.
Sir, in XOR 10, so if you write false dash is equal to dash and dash.
You can't use dash. If you want to use it on the right hand side, you have to give it a name.
Sorry.
Here I am able to do it because this neither the first argument nor the second argument occurs on the right hand side expression. Do you see?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So what you say is true. In certain cases, you can just say what the yeah, that's right. So, yeah. So yeah. So this is a don't care. Okay. Okay. Finally, you can also do. I'll just end with this, and we'll go through this or maybe I should just go through this in detail. Okay. In the next class. Plus, in the next class, I will also tell you why we are using this plus space n rather than, and also to see how much behind I am. I should just pardon me for a minute. Oh, I'm just redoing all the things. No, I was just confirmed that even last year I wasn't able to finish all this in one lecture. So I'm using the same slides for 2 lectures, but that's okay. Yeah. Okay, good. So don't worry. We are not going too slow. I don't want to go faster than this because, so please stop me at any point of time and ask me if you feel I'm going too quickly or whatever. It is good. I appreciate the fact that you asked questions, but not everyone asks questions. Not everyone can ask questions in a class of 85. But please, nobody should remain silent because, yeah. So don't be shy. After all, it's not even like you are in the midst of your classmates so that you need to feel shy. You are just sitting in the comfort of your own house. So don't worry at all. Okay, you can think that you are still sort of partially anonymous at least, and you can freely ask your questions. Okay, fine, good. Are there any questions in closing? If not, I'll stop here. We are at slide. Yeah, we are at slide 16. We have just started slide 16 out of 27, which is fine. It's good. I'll do that.
Sir, can we give XOR any name like ABC or something like that?
What?
Can we give XOR any name like ABC or something like that? Because we can do for some functions like in place of double, we can use whatever we want to use, like our own name.
Yeah. Sure. That XOR is just my name. I mean, if you want people to understand what your function does, you call it XOR. Otherwise, you call it my whatever. You can call it whatever you want. Okay. You can call this function whatever name you want. So you can call it this if you want. Are you happy with this?
Yeah.
Is there any spelling mistake in this? No.
Yeah.
But nobody will know what this means. I mean, whatever. Nobody will know what your function is doing. They'll know a lot about you though. That's okay for you? Okay, good. That's it.
Yes, sir.
Compile. You can do this. Yeah? Good. Happy. On that happy note, why is it giving an error? Where is it giving an error? Did not find module. It's trying to import some nonsense. Sorry. Now it will work. Okay, so I'll upload this file on the Moodle page also. I'll upload the slides also on the page. Yes. Yes. So good. So so you can now say Shakti Chauhan is the boss. You can say true, false. Okay, good. Right. Yes. Anything else? There is nothing else. Then have a nice evening. See you on Thursday. Yeah. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, and can you please see to it that your course is added to the course selection list?
That your enrollment for the course? No.
Yes.
Yeah, it will get worked out. Don't. So what is your question? Can I see to it that?
That your course is added to the course enrollment list.
My course is already added to the course enrollment. So I'll figure out. I'll ask Manoj. So you have sent a mail, no? They'll look into it. Yeah, sure. If not, does anyone else have a problem of my course not being added to the course enrollment list? How many of you have enrolled in my course? Yes, Chandradeep?
Sir, everyone in the MSc batch has not been enrolled. I mean, the course is not even in the list.
Okay. Then I'll talk to Professor Manoj. Okay. Then I'll talk to Professor Manoj and resolve it. Okay. Good. Okay. Great. Good of you to tell me. I'll figure it out by Wednesday. You'll be able to. Okay. Fine. Good. Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else? There are no questions. Then I will stop sharing the screen. Stop the. Yes. Stop sharing screen.